Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So before we get into today's videos, I want to say a huge thank you to Xavier Suarez, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, for sending in these pictures of his Imperial Guard. These guys are based off the Basilisks 8th from the Tanith First and Only books, and I believe they were heavily involved in the book Honor Guard by Dan Abnett when I think it's the, correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically when the Gaunt's Ghosts have to go to the shrine of the Saint Sabbat, and the Basilisks 8th help the Tanith achieve that mission. So really cool. I really like the fact that you've obviously done a paint scheme off that. Not gonna lie, the paint scheme is a little rough around the edges, but what I really do like is obviously the fluff behind it, but also the green and blue especially of the Scions, but of the infantry in general. I think that works really well. Very interesting colour scheme. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Xavier, for sending these in. If anyone else has any pictures that they would want me to take a look at and possibly use in some videos, just go straight to my Facebook, Mordian Glory Facebook, add me as a friend, and then post some pictures on my timeline. And that's it, basically. And if I think they look cool, I will use them. And if you've got some good fluff and some good story behind it, then I'll definitely use them. So, anyway, without further ado, let's crack on and take a look at today's video. So, a question that I often get asked in comments, and a question that I often see popping up on forums, and recently I saw it pop up on the Bolter and Chainsword, is the debate of whether you should take a Basilisk in your army or take a Manticore. Now, generally speaking, the general school of thought is that Basilisks are the way to go. However, I personally don't see it as quite so clear cut. Okay, now the Basilisk is slightly cheaper. It's about 108 points, 110 points, and the Manticore is about 140 points, I believe. And the reason why this debate often comes up is they're both artillery pieces. They're both good in ITC because they can ignore line of sight and still bombard things. They both fulfill a very similar function. Okay. And it comes down to a quite interesting debate, which is the Basilisk. We'll take a look at the Basilisk first. The Basilisk is a strength 6, toughness 6, wounds 11, 3-up save vehicle. And it comes with the Earthshaker cannon, which has 240-inch range. Heavy D6, strength 9, AP -3, D3 damage. And you roll 2 dice for the number of attacks when firing this weapon and discard the lowest. Fair enough. So, the reason why people quite like the Basilisk is its reliability. Okay, you get 2d6, pick the highest for the number of shots, and that just means you can consistently get a good 3 or 4 shots. You consistently get a couple of hits. You can buff it with things like overlapping fields of fire or whatever. Or you can make it caging so it gets to reroll 1s if it stays still. There's a couple of things you can do, but it's very reliable. That's actually what it comes down to. You're going to get a couple of hits. You're probably going to wound a couple of times because it's strength 9, which means it can pretty much flatten anything that you point at, or at least damage anything you point at. It's got a solid AP -3, which allows it to cut through cover quite nicely, and D3 damage. All of this in the package of 108, 110 points. So, yeah, you can see it's not going... The thing with the Basilisk, though, is it's not going to just absolutely just destroy a unit. It will damage a unit, but for you to effectively kill something with Basilisk, you need to train 3, 4 of these things onto a target, and then they will flatten it. That's fair. But you do need to bring multiple Basilisks to the party to reliably blow something away in one turn. One of the minor things the Basilisk has over the Manticores, the Basilisk can be taken in squadrons, which means that if you want to, you can take up to 9 in your army. The Manticore doesn't have that ability, although generally speaking, you don't see a lot of players who are running more than 3 or 4 of these things anyway. Most Guard players will have a couple in their list, at least one or two. But you will rarely see... I'm not saying it's impossible, but unless someone's going for a themed list, you will rarely see more than 3 to 4 of these things in a list. I have very rarely seen that. So that's essentially the Basilisk. It's a reliable damage dealer. Now the Manticore is a different beast. Okay, the Manticore is a very different beast. It has almost the same stats as the Basilisk, except for its toughness 7, which is actually quite important. Okay, toughness 7. Now, because that just means it's just against things like assault cannons, it's just that bit tougher. And I remember when 8th edition was first dropping, and everyone was running things like assault cannons. There still is to this day this general premises of, you know, lots of medium strength, slight AP weapons. Well, the Manticore can withstand that a significant amount better. It's that like the argument between, you know, which one's better at Predator or Lehman Russ? Well, a lot of people go, well, obviously the Lehman Russ has got toughness 8, Predator toughness 7. Same thing kind of applies here. Now, the weapon that the Manticore comes with is the Storm Eagle rockets, and it comes with 4 of them. Okay, now they're 1 shot each, so you're only going to get 4 chances to shoot this weapon. However, it is very rare that a Manticore will get to fire all of its Storm Eagle rockets. Okay, it's very rare because they normally get treated as a quite high priority unit. Okay, now the Storm Eagle rocket has heavy 2d6 shots. It's strength 10, it's AP minus 2, it's D3 damage. Now straight away you can see strength 10. Whew, nice. Slight disappointment, it's only AP minus 2. Slight disappointing. But it is D3 damage per shot, the same as the Basilisk. Now, the strength 10 isn't a huge. Strength 10 versus strength 9 isn't a huge deal. In certain circumstances, it can be very important. You know, if you're shooting a lot of toughness 5 units, that's when it makes a difference. What the real thing here is, though, is the heavy 2d6. Now, the heavy 2d6, the reason you're paying more, even though the weapons are quite comparable, the reason you're paying more for Manticore is purely the potential damage output. It's the same reason why melter guns are more expensive than plasma guns, even though for every other edition, melter guns have always been cheaper. You know, in 6th and 7th, for example, and 5th, melter guns were 10 points, plasma guns 15 points. But now it's switched around in 8th edition because melter guns have the potential to do D6 wounds, whereas a plasma gun on overcharge can only do 2. So that's a potential 6 wounds versus a potential 2 wounds, 2 damage. Sorry. That's why you pay so much for the Manticore, because it has the potential to do so much damage. Okay, I mean, if you get the magic number, and when you think about how many times when you're running multiple Lehman Russes and you stand still, it'll happen to you. It'll happen to you reliably once or twice a game. You'll get the money shot. You'll get the 5 and the 6, or you'll get the double 6 for the number of shots. Even with it, you know, factor in command point reroll, or you know, if you're Katachan, for example, you can reroll one of the dice. There is a good chance that you can get the money shot with this thing. And when you do that, the Manticore is unbelievable. It's absolutely fantastic. There are so many ways in the Imperial Guard army now to get more accuracy as well. You can take Vestroyan and use Firstborn Pride, which lets you get +1 to hit. So you're hitting on 3s with your Storm Eagle rocket. You can have Cadian, so So you can use overlapping fields of fire. And if you stay still, you get to reroll ones to hit. Absolutely fantastic. You can have Katachan, or you can have Harker, which gives you reroll ones to hit, and you get to reroll one of the dice when you're determining the random number of shots. Means you've got that reliability. Now I'm just going to double check, but I also believe massive ordnances affect these units, but I'm going to double check before I say something which is not true. Massive ordnance, it is, yeah, you can reroll any hit rolls of a 1 made for friendly regiment, basilisks, wyverns, manticores, death strikes, or target enemy units are with 36 inches away in the shooting phase if they are within 6 inches of this model. It's not ideal because you have to be over 36 inches, but this thing's got a 120 inch range. So you stick it in a corner, there's always something you're going to be able to bombard potentially over 36 inches away. So the point is, there's a lot of ways that you can make the Manticore reliably get a high number of shots. And there's a lot of ways you can get rerolls on this thing. And there's a lot of ways you can get... Commissar Yarrick can give these things for any regiment reroll ones. If you want to take Mordian ones, for example. But the point is that means the Manticore can do a lot of damage. But the problem is reliability. Sometimes, no matter what you do, you get the double 1 and you fire 2 shots, and then you just miss. Well, that's 1/4 of this unit's firepower down the shitter. No, that is the problem. But I have personally seen and personally used Manticores and had this swinging luck. I have seen them fail to kill a single Orc boy or Tyrannid Gant. A failed Termagant. Just didn't kill it. Just unloaded. Just I needed to wipe something away. Just didn't do it. I've seen a Manticore fail to do a single piece of damage to a fucking Orc truck. Or light transport. Or like a rhino or something. Just something it should just flattened. On the flip side, I've seen these things just flatten a unit of Terminators. I've seen one of these things take... no word of a lie. I've seen one of these... I've seen it with one of my regular guard players down the club. I've seen one of these things take out a Land Raider. In one go. I think the Land Raider had taken like a couple of wounds already. But this thing, it just flattened it. Just a little bit of luck. That's all it took. A little bit of luck. Few combos. It's just, you can make Manticores do work. But that's the difference between a Manticore and a Basilisk, and that's where you have to decide as a guard player, are you willing, excuse the pun, pardon the pun, are you willing to roll those dice? Are you willing to take that risk? The Basilisk is a reliable, consistent damage dealer, but it won't just destroy something in one turn. It just generally won't happen. It doesn't have the volume of dice to do it. Manticore, but it will always do something. It will always do something. A Manticore doesn't have that. Manticore, you can put a lot of effort into making it reliable, but generally speaking, it's very swingy. The luck is very swingy. But if you get that money shot, if you get that just blessing of the Emperor, it will just save a flank in one go. And this has been true for pretty much every edition that Manticores have been using. It's not changed from 6th, 7th, and 8th edition. That's never changed. That's always how Manticores have worked. And one thing that's always stuck in my mind, it's a little outdated, the example, but the one thing that the first time I ever saw a Manticore do this was in 7th edition. Okay, so it's a little edition away. But I was playing a doubles game with another guard commander. It was 2 guard players versus 2 chaos players. And I was using, some tanks and some infantry, just the standard Mordian 50th list. And I was doing okay. I was just holding we had to hold our objectives, and we just had to hold the line, basically. And I was doing okay. I was holding my line, but my ally was struggling with 1,000 points each. My ally was struggling. He had some infantry, but he just had this Manticore, and his infantry were getting pushed back. And the Manticore, the first turn didn't do very much, second turn didn't do very much. The third turn, it got maximum damage output. And it was, it was the 3 pie plates. He got a direct hit. Obviously, we're talking about different edition now, and he just crushed this Chaos flank. He just crushed it, and his infantry had a resurgence and stopped pulling back and started pushing forward, and the Manticore saved the day. Now, my opponent, the Basilisk, he wouldn't be able to do that. My ally, I mean. And that's very true in 8th edition. So that's what you have. I'm not going to tell you a Basilisk is better than a Manticore. Basilisks are more reliable. Manticores have got better damage. But it's up to you as a guard player to decide which you think is more important. Are you a risk taker? Go for the Manticore. If you've just got inherent good luck, go for the Manticore. If you've got a way of making this thing super reliable, go for the Manticore. I mean, if you're facing Chaos in 8th edition and you've got a Manticore and you're playing, Cadian, you do a wound to some key target, you play overlapping fields of fire, you're playing against Chaos, you put down Vengeance for Cadia, you use your command point to make sure this thing gets a ridiculous amount of shots. You get like 10 or 11 shots, rerolling all hits, rerolling all wounds. Manticore's just going to just destroy something. Absolutely just blast it to pieces. So there you go, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Leave lots and lots of comments. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on this. I have Manticores. I have Basilisks. I use both. I think they're both equally good. I think personally taking a mix is the best way to do it. Because sometimes the Manticores are fun. And sometimes they'll just save your ass, basically. The Basilisks are incredibly reliable, incredibly consistent damage dealers. And you need that kind of element in a guard army. And don't forget, I believe Basilisks can use the aerial spotter stratagem and Manticores can't. So take that into account. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.